When global crude oil prices spike, buying habits shift immediately. A commuter drops their gas-guzzling car and swaps to an electric vehicle. This graph charts the law of demand. The downward curve shows that as price drops, consumers buy more. Producers follow the law of supply, sloping upward. Where these cross is equilibrium, deciding the real-world market price, PE, and quantity, QE. Understanding this automatic mathematical relationship is the baseline for any business. Trying to force a product into the market without respecting these curves usually ends in failure. In a perfect world, the market automatically redirects resources to exactly what society urgently needs. We call this allocative efficiency. During the very early days of COVID-19, global demand for medical oxygen spiked, and production immediately shifted to meet it. Companies strive to manufacture goods at the lowest possible cost with zero waste, known as productive efficiency, while constantly innovating over time, which is dynamic efficiency. But the real world is messy, and the system breaks down into market failure. This happens when true costs of doing business aren't factored into the price, like severe pollution from a factory and negative externality passed on to society. The system also cracks when a single monopoly hoards control over a market, driving prices up, or when there is information asymmetry, where sellers trick buyers with low-quality, fake products. Because real markets are chaotic, relying strictly on basic supply and demand is extremely risky. A company needs a concrete playbook to navigate the unpredictability. That playbook starts with market research. Before launching a product, companies must gather intelligence to map out the competitive battlefield and understand exactly what their customers want. The fastest and cheapest method is secondary research. This involves pulling existing data from government census reports, from economic surveys, and published industry analysis. To get highly specific, accurate data, businesses pay for primary research. This means going directly to the source through custom surveys, face-to-face interviews, and rigorous product testing. This creates a strict pipeline. You define the problem, collect the raw data, run the analysis, and finally arrive at an actionable conclusion. Data alone, however, only tells you what happened. To figure out what to do next, you have to run that data through a competitive framework. This outlines the SWOT analysis, an internal mirror and external radar, breaking down strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. For a mobile brand, they map internal factors, like a top-tier camera but high price, against external factors, like a growing market and fierce rivals. To go deeper into external threats, businesses look to Harvard academic Michael Porter. He developed a model to determine how profitable an industry actually is. The framework centers on the intensity of competitive rivalry. That core is squeezed by four surrounding pressures: the threat of new companies entering the market, the risk of substitute products, and the bargaining power held by both the suppliers and the buyers. When these strategies succeed, we measure the result using market share analysis. By comparing a company's sales against the total market, we see who dominates. In India's massive telecom industry, for example, Reliance Jio successfully captured the absolute largest piece of the pie. Leaders who deploy these frameworks stop reacting to supply and demand curves. They actively begin manipulating the market mechanism in their favor. Yet, even the most dominant companies are currently facing a massive modern failure in the market: the severe gap between demand and supply. When consumer demand drastically outpaces supply, society suffers extreme resource shortages. But when supply outpaces demand, the result is mountains of unsold products and unsustainable physical waste. The circular economy updates the traditional market model by prioritizing resource regeneration and reuse, which helps narrow the gap between what is produced and what is actually needed. A core part of this is reverse logistics. Major companies now actively collect old products and recycle e-waste, pulling heavy metals and plastics from consumer electronics right back into their own manufacturing supply chains. Success in the modern economy hinges on a strategy that combines rigorous market research with circular sustainability. By securing supply chains through reuse today, companies ensure they have a market left to lead tomorrow.